So it's not about the roles and the tasks. A lot of women make it to be about that. Just because I'm at home cooking and cleaning, I'm the little domesticated housekeeper. No, that's just your perception of that. If you can switch that to, this is actually a strength that I have, right? In the same way that a man, he can have a strength for cooking as well. The difference is the polarity.
So Martine De Luna, thank you so much for joining us for the Thoughts on Purpose podcast. I'm very, very grateful to have you here today.
Thank you, Nash. It's such a pleasure.
Oh, absolutely. We attempted to have this conversation once before, but the internet gods weren't pleased with us. So
yeah, there's a lot of good stuff coming up. So, and some of it's not really comfortable to hear, but here we are.
That's right. They couldn't stop us.
Yeah,
exactly. So for everyone listening, I've known Martine for, it's probably at least a year now, I'd say.
A year.
Yeah. Well and true. Yeah. It's pretty much bang on. And I met you through a coaching certification program, and I've seen your commitment to what you do and your commitment to growth and how firmly you stand in what you believe. And you're very humble, Martine, and I was blessed to have some deeper conversations with you, just in different settings, and I sensed about you that you have so much to offer, and I know you do offer to women in particular, but also men through the work you do, and you've achieved a high level of wisdom, what I would call wisdom in what you do. So I had to get you on the podcast. I had to have a deeper conversation. I don't quite know where this conversation is going to go, but I sense it's going to be very valuable. So thank you. Yeah, thank you for giving up your time. I know you're a mum and you're a busy coach, so I really appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Nash. I really want to thank you for that very generous introduction. But yeah, I always believe that part of what we get to do here on this planet is respond to the call of God on our lives. And he's called me to be a wife. He's called me to be a mother and to support women and men in particular in just owning being a wife, husband, or mother, father. So this is very close to my heart. And I guess it's also why it doesn't feel like such a difficult or strenuous work or service, because it is in, the service of God first. And then he just brings everything together. Yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful. So well said. And I'm going to read your bio now because I want to, you've done so much, and the quickest way to communicate what you've done, even though it doesn't really do you justice, I got to read your bio. So Martine is a devoted wife and mother, while also a 3 times certified transformational coach. Her mentorship in supporting women dismantle unhelpful beliefs against God, men, and masculine principles. Oh, that's what you support women with, so they can feel safe and supported in embodying their femininity in their life, relationships, and business. Since 2012, Martine has also been a feminine, it's the words feminine business consultant. Am I saying that right? Yeah.
That is right.
Business consultant. I like this. I'm curious.
We'll talk about that.
We got to talk about that.
Yes, we will.
Yeah. Awesome. Who supports women in integrating with the masculine practices of vision, direction, branding, structure, and systems, so that their businesses feel held and supportive of their family and their home life. There's so much in that. There's so much.
There is.
I love it. So Martine, this is a question I do like to begin these conversations with, because it seems to access a lot out of the amazing guests I'm blessed to talk to. And that is, if you were to walk into a park today and you saw sitting on the bench a young girl of maybe 7 years old, and you realized that it was yourself you were seeing, and she saw you and you recognized one another, what would inspire that young 7-year-old girl the most about the woman you are today?
that I first chose to be a mother.
Mm.
A mother. And it's interesting that you asked that, because my 7-year-old daughter was just telling me 2 days ago, I want to be a mom, just like you.
Wow. Wow.
And when I was 7, I actually wanted to be an astronaut. So when my mom asked me when I was 7, and I'm just going a little bit off tangent here, I said I want to be an astronaut. But then she said, "Oh, but you have to be like American for that, and that's not available to us. So what else do you want to be?"
Wow.
And then I never, I went through like gymnast, ballet dancer.
Yes.
And then eventually when I got older and as I got to like watch my mom, so my mom was always a very presence in my life. I did want to be a mom. Like when I was a teenager, comparing all of the other careers, I wanted to be a mom first and foremost. Yeah.
Interesting. What do you feel drew you to motherhood?
Growing up, I really had a very nuclear family paradigm. So dad went to work, mom was a homemaker. She taught me how to cook and bake and clean and make a home.
Yes.
And I ended up being very interested in just how my dad could come home to a warm meal, and that was important. That it was important for my father to come home to a place that looked nice, that held him after having a hard day out there, in the field going to work. And my mom really set the tone for that. So she was always very big on the idea that you can be a career woman, sure. You can be a woman who conquers the world, sure. But you can also be a woman who is like your husband's safe haven, like when he comes home. And that is just as valuable as what you get to do out there. So I think that set quite a different model of what it meant to be a woman for me. Because growing up, we get all of the narrative, about, like conquer the world as a woman, or own your, like build your empire as a woman. However, what it doesn't include are the different ways that a woman does that. And it's not the same as men. The way we conquer the world isn't the same as how a man might conquer the world, like a father might conquer the world. The way we build our empire is not the same as how like a father or a husband might conquer or build his empire, because we're different. Our bodies are different. Our biology is different. Our brains are different. Even the deepest yearnings and the deepest part of who we are is different from like the male psyche. So I'm fascinated also like by the difference between like the male and the female psyche as well. And I think my mom was just such a representation of that distinction. And my dad likewise also very much embodied kind of like the, kind of like what we call the traditional masculine protector, provider archetype.
Yes. Wow. Yeah. Wow. One thing I remember as I hear you talk, Martine, another thing that drew me to you is your bravery. Like these are brave topics to talk about nowadays.
Oh yeah, especially in the world we live in and in the culture scape that we have today. Yeah.
1,000%. So let's go back to empires, because you were mentioning empires. I love the sound of that. Can you first of all talk about feminine empires? Like how does in your understanding, how does a woman build her empire? What does that look like versus a man?
Yeah.
What's the difference? Like this is all new to me. I know I'm here as fascinated.
I don't really use the word empire like in my work, but I use it. I'll use it here to kind of like just distinguish what that means.
What would you call it in your work?
In my work, I just call it her realm.
Her realm. Okay, well, let's run with that.
Her realm.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. because in my work, what I do, because women love embodiment, it's just who we are. We love taking on and activating the embodiment of certain archetypes. So we can be the queen, but we can also be like the little girl. We can also be the warrior, but we can also be the mother. So these are different archetypes that exist within ourselves, and that they get activated when we are doing certain things, or when we are in certain experiences and situations. So when I talk about realm as it pertains to a woman, I'm talking about what she has in front of her, the opportunities, the challenges, the invitations, the struggles, the pain, the pleasure, and the joy as well. That is her realm. And depending on her level of growth, personal development, and awareness, she gets to be in command of that realm, right? Or she gets to be a victim to the circumstances within that too.
Yes.
So a victim is another archetype or consciousness that a woman might unknowingly embody.
Yes.
So when I talk about realms in like my work, I invite women to consider, well, if you could take a bird's eye view of what this realm looks like, what would you have? Like, what would you have it be? And for a lot of women, that question alone is scary because we've been unconsciously conditioned to believe that we have to compete for everything, that we have to earn everything, that we don't deserve anything unless we fight tooth and nail for it. But that's actually not how women achieve. Women achieve in a different frequency than men do. Men achieve upward and directional. Women, we need to flow. Just like our hormonal cycles and our bodies flow, sometimes of the month, we can't give it all. You know, we're depleted in our bodies. We need to restore. We need to rest. Some of the times we can go with that directional energy and conquer whatever is in our realm. Sometimes we just have to be quiet and receive instruction, downloads, direction from God. And that is when a woman is aware of how she achieves differently from men, then number one, she can stop trying to build her realm in the way that a person with a male psyche and body and biology might do it. And then she just honors how she is built, her psyche, her biology, her body. And so that's what I do with women. I'm like, when you look at this realm, how would you like it to be? And some of their responses are, well, you know, like I want a 6-figure business. I want a 7-figure business. But she doesn't really know what that means because it's very abstract. It's full of numbers.
Yes.
However, if you ask her, how do you want to feel while you're building this realm? Oh, well, I want it to be easy. I want it to have gaps where I can rest my body, especially when she's going through like an estrogen phase, you know, where we don't feel like doing anything.
Yeah.
Or when she is in her luteal phase, which in the layman's term, PMS, right? I want it to be easy. I want it to feel spacious. I would like for it to feel like I can breathe. It's very different from saying, I want a 7-figure business. Which is so I help women tap into that. Like if you're building a business in your realm, how does it get to be easy? How does it get to be supportive of who you are? If you are investing in a relationship, how does that get to be easy versus trying to achieve something out of it or trying to get something out of it?
Yes.
If you are building a family, how does that get to be easeful versus I have to compete with all the other families that I'm comparing myself to out there?
Yeah.
So does that give like a picture of how I hold space?
I love that. Yeah, I love that. Realms. It's a beautiful term. I love that how you've broken that down. And I've certainly seen that with Cassie, my wife, and I've grown up with 5 sisters as well. So
Oh,
I've sort
so
of,
you know.
I've seen, I just end up observing things and certain patterns. And yeah, so
Yeah.
I even see this with our little girls to some extent, 2 daughters.
Mm.
I'm seeing this already in their behavior. Like sometimes they either go and sometimes they just need that complete
Yeah.
nothing. And with our son to a degree,
Yeah.
but yeah, more so with the girls. So it makes so much sense. And also working with a lot of female entrepreneurs,
Mm.
I've seen them get to a point where they're just they don't know themselves, and they're judging themselves because they can't
Yeah.
achieve in the way that some men do.
Yeah.
This is not about either or being better. It's just pure, like it's just a different makeup, it seems. Is that right?
Absolutely. Because we are distinct. We are different. I mean, if we go to like the primal level of our bodies, we're complementary, right? So I always help women understand the masculine energy is a directional, penetrative energy, just like a man's body is directional, and it's the penetrative aspect of the human.
Yes.
The woman is the receptive aspect, so she receives what the masculine energy can provide. Now, a lot of women start to conflate this with male and female, and that's where they have the struggles about comparison. But what is a masculine principle really to, like, let's say, a feminine business? I like to remind women that, and actually I learned a lot of this from having coaches that are men, right? Because men provide that directional energy, whereas a lot of, and I'm speaking to my realm of feminine coaches, sometimes female coaches, when they don't have like maybe a masculine or a man, masculine mentor or a male mentor, we can get caught up in our emotions, in our flow, and make that the excuse that, well, I'm feminine, like I'm a woman, I have to be in my flow, I can't be contained. But your business won't be a business if there's no a structure supporting it, if there's no cash flow supporting it, if there's no money, which are all of those things are directional masculine principles, if you notice, compared to like the essence of her business, like her brand, her message, the way she is to the people that she's drawing in to that business, right? Which is more of like the feminine aspect. So I help women to understand that there's no competition here. There is complementary energies here, though. So if you want a feminine business where you can work 3 days a week and you can have 4-day weekends, you can do that, but there must be a masculine principle of order, of system, of structure, of being paid a full-time income so you can work part-time hours, right? There has to be that penetration. And that's where a lot of women find they have to contend with their female ego a lot as well, because the female ego shows up wanting to prove that I can achieve like the male psyche, or I can achieve like, somebody like Tony Robbins or Joel Brown, men, right? But no, women are different. And when we embrace our multidimensionality, that difference, then that's when we start to rest in the idea that masculine things can support me, right? Masculine aspects like getting paid the, like the amount that really encapsulates the value that I bring, right? That I can hold that in my body, in my feminine body. I tell you, that's one of the things that is really difficult for women. It's like we're so wired to give and to love and to live from the heart that sometimes women struggle with getting paid for that. Getting compensated for that, which is a penetration as well. It's a penetrative aspect. So I don't know. I might be rambling here. Just let me know.
This is fascinating. I'm just letting it flow because this is actually really, really powerful. So I love this. I love this conversation. It's super insightful, and it's just I'm building up with all these questions as I hear you talk. I'm like, yeah, okay. So let's circle back, because you said something really interesting at the start of this, which was I guess it's such a almost considered an out there idea now, where you said, keep the house and all that stuff for your husband, and be a safe space for him. Like, I'm fascinated by that. Like, and really? Again, I'm just curious to see your point of view, where like, how do you do that? And then, because like, you're a business owner as well, like you're an awesome entrepreneur. Like, how do you balance both?
Well, that's a part of letting systems support you. So I don't do it all on my own. Mm-hmm. I'm in full support of having a team support you as a woman. Yes. See, and I'm just going to like make a distinction between Eastern and Western perception here. So in Western perception, where, like we got ideas like feminism, for instance, right? Mm-hmm. Feminism was about, or they believed it was about, equality between men and women. But with that, was also like a shadow. So I'm kind of like using some Jungian language here. Yes. The shadow of having to prove that we could be like the male sex, or even take on like the male psyche, which is not true. Like, fundamentally, evolutionarily, that's not true. We can never be at the DNA level like men. Mm-hmm. So like women, if we go back to like times in history where men would still be the ones to go to war, like in battle, to protect kingdoms and realms, and women would actually be protected. Women and children would be protected. The reason for that is, if the opposing tribes got to the women, then the women could propagate their race or their lineage. So women were considered really valuable because of our DNA, because of our biology, because we are carriers of life. And so that hasn't changed throughout time and history, no matter the new ideologies that seem to come up every 100 years, right? Yeah. Okay, so fast forward to now. Now, when you have kind of like these new ideas that, like men and women are equal. Yes, we're equal in value, but we're not equal in our strengths and our talents. We are not. Like, I always tell women, this is not about having the little housewife at home cooking 3 meals a day in an apron. It's not about that, right? I know really successful chefs. We all know really successful chefs who are men, and they're cooking, conquering the world as they do it. So it's not about the roles and the tasks. A lot of women make it to be about that. Just because I'm at home cooking and cleaning, I'm the little domesticated housekeeper. No, that's just your perception of that. If you can switch that to, this is actually a strength that I have, right? In the same way that a man, he can have a strength for cooking as well. The difference is the polarity, right? And a lot of women, and at least the women that I've worked with, they conflate like doing the housework, being at home, instead of being in the workplace and working like under a boss, to mean that that is better. And this is not. Like, that's the freer option. I always present them this situation. Okay, but out there, you're working for a boss. At home, if you were running your own feminine business, your boss would be yourself. And then God, if you believe in God, like I believe in God, you answer to God, and your house becomes your realm. It could be your empire if you wanted it to. So it's really just a shift in paradigms, because who's freer? Like the woman who gets to be independent, to have a home that she can actually nurture and take care of and feel good in, versus a woman who has to spend 40 hours a week outside of her home, going against her biology, maybe even her monthly cycle when she needs to rest, right? And competing in a society that is very capitalistic, which is a masculine structure,
Yes.
right? Where would she feel more in ownership of herself, in her own domain that she created, right? So then we stop seeing kind of like this paradigm of, oh, the little 1950s housewife, but this is my kingdom. This is my realm. And you hear so many stories of women getting burnt out, like in the workplace, because they have to answer to whatever that masculine structure that is an overlord over them, versus here in her home office, you know, like many of us have who are working online, in her home, where she gets to call all the shots. Who then has more power? Who then has more influence? Who then has more freedom? That's the key word here.
Yeah.
Like, where is my woman free? Is it in the expectations of what ideologies say? Or is it in sovereignty, in my own realm that I design for my pleasure, for my essence, for my family even? So that's kind of like the paradigm that I present women with when we're going through like the paradigm shift exercise. So that's one of the things that we do in my work. We look at the paradigms. What paradigm are you coming from? Because how you feel and how you thrive in your life depends on the paradigm that you're living in and that you chose to live within.
Makes so much sense. Wow.
Yeah.
Powerful stuff.
Yeah.
Powerful stuff. Yeah. All right.
I have to honor Bob Proctor for the whole paradigm shift tool, because he's the one that really, he was my red pill into that. God rest his soul.
As soon as I hear the word paradigm, I just,
Bob Proctor.
Yeah.
Oh, I miss him. Yeah.
Yeah.
I had the opportunity he was actually the first coach I didn't work directly with him, but I worked with his consultants, that really was my deep dive into personal development. So props to Uncle Bob.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Bob. I never was, I've certainly done some of his work, and I'm familiar with it. He was he's one of those, his work is timeless. It's going to last through the ages. People will be watching and hopefully 200 years and still getting
he's there in the quantum, like.
That's it, exactly. Yeah, precise. He'd be loving him up there. All right. So what's actually, I'm going to ask you, I want to find out more about your story first, because you delve straight into this, but what led you to doing this work specifically out of all the different, because you've got a great mind. You're very, you've got this beautiful balance of the femininity, but you're also very driven. Like there's
I know that about myself.
Yeah. So why did you choose this path?
Well, I was led to coaching from my experience being a work-at-home mom. So back in 2009, I was pregnant, and I was already deciding to leave employment because I was employed. I was a teacher and I was teaching English. And I had decided that I'm going to be a mom, and I'm going to be a full-time hands-on mom. So when I gave birth, it kind of like set things in motion for me to find something to do on my laptop. It was blogging at first. So at first I was freelancing and blogging, and I was blogging about being a new mom. At the same time, I was freelancing as a copywriter for like a digital marketing company in the States. And it was through that type of mentorship in that company that I learned how to leverage skills online. So 3 years into that, my son was around 2. I decided I don't want to be like working for an agency anymore. I want to do my own thing and try being an entrepreneur. So in 2012, I started mentoring women who were reading my blog, coming to me and asking for mentorship. They were like, please teach us how to like leave our jobs and do something online. So I'm like, okay, God, let's do that. So that's when I started to invest in learning branding and marketing and just taking what I had learned in the freelance work into my business. So that's one of my skills. I'm a really good assimilator, and that's a feminine skill, because when you give the feminine something, she will multiply it. One of my mentors says, you give, it's like, it's natural to the feminine. You give her a little sperm and she will give you a baby in 9 months. You give her resources and she will make a meal out of it. You give her a house, she will make a home out of it. So it's kind of like the same philosophy there. So I realized, this is fun, like consulting for women. And that's why I was originally like a feminine business consultant, because I helped women to create a side hustle. And then when that grew, they could cut the umbilical cord from work and do that full time.
Yes.
I still do that. By the way. Yes. And then in 2016, during like a rocky time in our marriage, and this is how I always say, like, it was my rocky marriage that drove me to look at my business again and say, wait a minute, am I being like more in my masculine energy here, that it's killing the polarity that I have with my husband? How am I going to fix that? I started to learn about femininity and masculinity back then, and I became so excited with it, and how it was so restorative for relationships, whether dating or marriage, and how it supported women entrepreneurs who were treating their businesses like men, who were doing their businesses like men, burning out, shooting down like their adrenals, getting fatigued, losing their periods. So I said, I'm interested in this, because I'm going to reorient my business around this. So that was in 2016. That's when I started to get into some of the Bob Proctor work and going into the world of personal development. Because prior to that, I was just in like the marketing and sales, which is very masculine. It's very directional, like go, 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 which is great, because it's my foundation. However, because the feminine is meant to multiply her resources, it was not good for my marriage to treat my business like a man. Right. So that's when I started to invite the concept of ease and flow into the way I was doing business, but also the way I was living my life, like as a wife and a mother. So I committed to like working only like 3 days a week. That was the first thing. I hired a mentor whose specialty was helping women to just unify like their homes and their businesses. So this was my first coach. Wow. And she was also like a female entrepreneur, but her credo was, it gets to be easy. So I'm like, I love that. That is totally counterculture to what this whole like build your empire and conquer the world message for women-led businesses was. So a few years after that, I started to get more into like the transformational work. And that's what led me to my next coach, and eventually to like Joel's program where you and I met. And I became fascinated with the human mind and programming, and how we had just been programmed a certain way, and how if we can break that program, we can create like with God and, like really be in our sovereignty. So that was between 2018 to 2020 when I met you and Joel, and then got into that program. So I'm always learning. I'm always letting masculine resources like training and seminars and certifications into my field, because I know that once I have that, and once I let myself be trained in the discipline of that, I can multiply it into like my feminine business. That's just, that sounds strange to some people, but that's just how I see anything that I get to receive. So that's one of the things that I also teach women. So a lot of women are like, oh, it's expensive to like pay for a course. Oh, it's expensive to like pay for a mentor. I always help them. Wait a minute. you're the receptive aspect of this. You get to receive mentorship. You get to make the money possible. You get to be paid well so that you can invest in yourself. That's also a big, a huge aspect of why I'm so passionate about this work, because it helps women to return to that design of, wait a minute, it gets to be easy. It gets to be provided for me, right?
I love that. So how do you balance that between obviously allowing it to be easy and also getting stuff done? Like,
okay. Yeah. So the practical, like 3-dimensional stuff is I have cleaners come in. So in my country, it's customary to, like hire your help done for you.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah. So I have a cleaning lady. She comes in twice a week to do like the deep cleaning stuff, like clean my bathroom, gut my kitchen, where the stuff where it really gets dirty.
Yes.
But during the week, I just manage, like the cleaning very efficiently, with systems, with appliances, things like that.
Yes.
I also have 2 virtual assistants. So I have somebody that's managing the applications that are coming in. I have somebody that is looking at my emails. I have someone that's doing my graphic design. Like, I don't want to be like a person that's chained to her laptop all day. I want to be with my children because I homeschool them. Right. Okay. So this is not a one-woman show. And that's a one-woman show is not easy. So how does it get to be easy? Hire the help. Yes. How do you have the capacity to hire the help? Pay your business well, right? Yes. So that you can, take from those assets like that you build in your business and invest it into the ease that you get to have. So that's where a lot of women also have a problem receiving, because you mean like I have to outsource my work? No, you get to. Yes. You get to receive that into your field, because if you don't, then we're just going to repeat the same pattern all over again. If I'm not worthy, I don't get to ask for help, I don't have enough, I'm not enough, all of these things. So that's how I do it. And a lot of people that I help are also becoming open to being supported that way too.
It's so powerful. And I remember hearing, I'm sure you're familiar with the quote. Essentially, it takes a tribe to raise a child.
It takes a village.
Yeah, a village. That's the term. And so that's true. Like you're calling on other people with their skill sets to come and support you, and then in turn you support their businesses. I'm such a big believer in this, by the way, Martine.
Yeah, because I'm supporting my VA's businesses. Yeah,
it's beautiful. It's beautiful. It is. And
symbiotic.
Precisely. And then people say, well, but then they've got a job, they don't have a business. Well, it might just be a stepping stone for them. They don't have to do it forever.
Yeah, exactly.
It's really powerful. And some people love cleaning. Some people, it lights them up. I certainly know people who run cleaning businesses, and they absolutely love it. They do.
In fact, the person who cleans my house, I featured him on my blog 10 years ago, and that's how he got a lot of business. So now he has teams. So he used to be like a one-man show, coming in with his magic vacuum cleaner. Now he has franchises, seminars where he can duplicate what he used to do solo flights. So like,
perfect example.
We see things, we sort of like see things just in front of us, never what they could become.
Yes, precisely.
But that is the capacity God has given us. One of our faculties is imagination, right? It's one of those faculties of the mind, but it's also one of the abilities that God has given us. And so if we see like this VA, let's say, I'm planting a seed in her so that maybe one day she wants to grow her own agency of VAs, right? Right now, she's technically she's not my employee because that's not how my business is structured, I get it. But I contract her. But now, like she has the freedom, because she's contracted, to own her own agency, which she does, right? Yeah. So like, it's so beautiful to see things as realms versus just an empire where there's one person up top calling all the shots. And that's why I don't use that word,
Yeah, I love it.
because I am
Uh,
for, let's have our own realms, and let's have like a symbiotic relationship with each other, one realm supporting another realm.
I love
And
that.
that's how it gets to be like feminine too, like for women who have businesses, like women supporting women. That's what it means.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah. It's you project your mind forward and you kind of imagine a society where more people did that. And I've kind of got this vision for the future where I see so many people running businesses and being entrepreneurs, like people with these, they're little health food shops, and there's people not buying from these massive supermarkets, but supporting.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, and like these little communities, people with their skill sets. Like there's so many skilled people out there who can't start a business because they're just getting consumed by these massive retail shops or supermarkets.
Exactly.
And like I love that idea. Yeah, these different realms, and you go and support someone else's realm. You go and add value in theirs.
Yeah.
And add value. Like that's beautiful. And creating your little community. Like I love the word community and or your
Me
tribe.
too.
Having that around you and people with different skill sets. Like I have clients, and I know that, say, one's a videographer, one's a photographer. I'll refer them clients. I want to see them win.
Yes.
You just
exactly.
Once you get into it and you get a taste for it yourself, and you experience the freedom that comes with giving yourself permission to actually step into your thing, whatever that is for you, and find your zone of genius, then you want that for more people. And so it excites me, the fact that you're bringing this out to the world. I was even hiring someone to come and mow our lawns and everything like that. But then Andrew, our son, like he's at an age where he's obsessed with lawnmowers.
Oh yeah. The children help. The children.
Yeah, I couldn't be the not cool dad. Yeah, precisely.
Exactly. Yeah. I have a 12-year-old. I have a 7-year-old. They now have those principles. Like I don't want my children to not have skills on how to keep a home, because eventually they're going to move out. They're going to have their own homes. I don't want them to live in a pigsty. So they make their beds. We have a chart where they have to check it off. I made my bed. I exercise for 15 minutes. It sounds like, kind of like what we do with our clients, like have your self accountability list. Like they have that already. I use a lot of what I learned in personal development on my children.
Good. Yeah.
Because we're passing on the skills, we're passing on principles that they can use for life.
What a gift.
So that they get to be successful. And this is why I'm so in support of men and women having personal development, like investing in that, because it's not just for us. If we're parents, we're passing these on to our children. They're watching us every day.
Yes.
And what kind of example of a man or a woman are we setting for our children?
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree 1,000%. It reminds me of a funny story. I'm literally running a challenge right now, and one of the members of the challenge, she posted a video of the replay she was watching of the challenge I did, and I was up on the big TV screen in the lounge. And one of her kids was there, and the kid was listening, but the kid had like a big balloon or something. It was like trying to pick my nose on the screen. Like he's like, and Cassie saw it, and she's like, "Oh, but isn't that cool that the baby's hearing personal development?" Like, and I agree.
So cool.
Yeah, I agree as well. Like Cassie and I in the car, even when we weren't doing this work, but we dreamed about it, we would always have tapes of you, like you said, Bob Proctor or Jim Rohn or Tony Robbins playing, and the little kids were just there having their bottle, but it was like subliminally programming them. Yeah,
it's programming them. Like they are open. They're just the subconscious mind when they're that age. So like that will have its fruit eventually. But when we hone it, when they're of age, like she's 7, my daughter, my son is 12 years old.
Yeah.
Like now they know that this can actually be a habit. This can actually be something that I do, and it's part of who I am.
Yes.
Right. Personal development. And that's my desire, like for the children. Like it starts with me. Yes. And then they get to have agency and choose what they want, of course. But, while they're children, and they're in our household, they will be trained in that. They will be trained in the discipline of having a home, of caring for your body, of caring for yourself. That's just like non-negotiable here in the family.
I love that. I love it. And you give them so many more choices in life when you do that, because
Exactly.
they're no longer someone who's having a bad day and they're like, oh, my only option is to go and find a career that makes me happy. Like, you've taught them, make your bed, you feel happy. Exercise 15 minutes, you'll feel better. Do this. Like, they've got more options available to them. Say a prayer, meditate, whatever it is. Like, I call it expanding people's palettes, like painters.
I love that.
Expanding palettes of colors, of choices, of options. So you're giving them such a gift, and they're very blessed to have you, especially the way you embody both of these, the masculine and feminine, so well. So what do you like? How do you and your husband set it up? So you kind of figure out like his roles, her roles. Like, I've heard so many different. One of my mentors once. We literally like code the blue ones and the pink ones for the girls, or whatever. Like, how do you do it? I'm curious.
Okay. So my husband works a corporate job. So he's the office guy. So he's head of a department, and he's in charge of a lot of people. So when he comes home, he just really wants to be with the kids and rest. So our agreement is, well, I've always wanted to stay at home. I've never like wanted to go back like into the workplace or anything. So our agreement is that like I just make the home. I make the home. I decorate it. I design it. I bake. I take care of it. And he loves that, and I love that about him. And then his responsibility is, to he puts the kids to bed, for instance. Like, he reads them the bed. Well, at least my daughter, because my son's doesn't need that anymore. He's 12. But like my daughter, like every night, oh, daddy's going to read me a story. Daddy's going to put me to bed. Like, he loves doing that, because it, I once heard a mentor tell me, this is a marriage mentor. And it's like, men, when they're out there in the field, they're in their logical leadership mind. So when they get home, there has to be like a paradigm shift for him where he's back in his body.
Yes.
And I thought that was fascinating. And so my husband, when he gets home, there's food waiting for him. There is a clean house. There's no mess. First of all, I don't like mess. It wrecks my nervous system. So I'm a clean person, right? And it's relaxed. Like, I set the tone for him to come home. I ask him, like, are you on the way home? Like, what can I do? And I just set the tone, because the feminine sets the frequency. Right. And then the masculine, like when he, like he assumes like the more kind of like tangible aspects of things. Like, he wants to put her to bed, and he wants to like read the stories, and he wants to have a massage and relax. So in terms of like what it looks like on Mondays to Fridays, that's what it looks like. He also like has dates with the children. So I'm with the children like all the time. Literally like almost 24/7. Wow. But, he takes my son out, or he takes my daughter out, and they have like daddy time individually. He also is in charge of a lot of the fun, so they bike, they play basketball, all of the things that bring him back into his body that he's not using at work. And once I asked him, I said, babe, what is there that I can do, like to help you? Because I know that work is hard. And he's like, I just would love to feel supported. That is all. Like, my husband never asks me for tangible things. We're not like in some 50-50 like relationship of that kind of equality. But he knows that my strength is in how I can make him feel, how I can set the home up to make him feel back in his body. That's the agreement that we have. And then him, he'll take care of, he takes care of everything utilitarian, like bills, pay the bills, pay the utilities, pay, the people that need to be paid to make our life possible.
Yes.
And me, my income is for our fun, our entertainment, our investments too, like it's to grow like the generational wealth. So like, I don't know if that answers the question, but that's
I love that. That's
our dynamic. That's our dynamic.
Beautiful. Yeah. And that's what I wanted to learn. That's what I wanted to understand. Like, what is the dynamic? And it's beautiful how you found this balance. And that's really what it is. It is a balance. And
we're not perfect. Okay. Like, we still have, like disagreements as a family. We still, like there are temper tantrums with children, as there
Yeah,
are
of course,
always,
of course.
but
Yeah,
there's that foundation of those agreements. So
yeah.
agreements are that kind of like integration of the masculine and the feminine. Like,
Mhm.
we're not going to be like this hot potato
Yeah,
mess of emotions as a family. We're going
yeah,
to have certain disciplines.
yeah.
We're going to have certain agreements with the children and between ourselves as spouses, right?
Yes,
And it's when you have those, we call them values, right? Vocational values, and then like your core values.
yes.
When you actually live by those, they can be very powerful in keeping the family in harmony with one
Yeah.
another.
Yes.
And as coaches, that's one of actually the foundational tools we start with like your why. What
Yes.
is your why? Like, what is it? What is the why that makes you cry?
Mm.
Like, it just gets you in the heart. That's my family. And so if I'm going to invest in my clients and in my business, I'm going to invest 10,000% in the values and like the functions of our family.
Mhm. Mhm.
Because why am I doing all of these things? Why do I have a feminine business? Why am I making the choice as a woman to have a business? It's
Mhm.
because I have a family and I have children and I have a husband that drives me,
Mhm.
that inspires me rather to be all that I can be.
Yeah.
Right. So it's so
Yeah.
important to have the values and the vision
Yes.
um, at the heart of the family.
I love that.
Yeah.
So powerful. Hmm. So for a family who they don't have this in place and they've
Hmm.
maybe they've started the race off on the wrong foot, kind of thing,
Yeah.
and they're in motion, but they're like, oh wow, I've yeah, this is not looking good. I'm in a bit of a tailspin.
Yeah.
How do they start creating this kind of a dynamic where they figure out, his strengths, her strengths, and I guess also that like there would be a second part to this question would be
Hmm.
for it's say the man is not so much doing his thing
Right.
and the woman needs to step up and do other things, or vice versa, like the woman for whatever reason she's having a time of grieving or something like that.
Mm.
And like how do you balance that and how do you
Right.
navigate those things?
Well, I can talk about women in my experience
Yeah,
who, let's say the woman's into personal development and her husband is not,
yeah,
right?
big one.
That's huge, right?
Yeah.
It really, and I'm going to borrow something from Bob Proctor, and he says, "You are the only problem, and you are the only solution to
Mm-hmm.
anything you will ever have." That's true
Yeah.
for men, and that's true for women. It's about who had the awakening. Who
Yeah.
had the awakening that things could be different? It starts with that person. So if
Mm-hmm.
your husband hasn't awakened to like what it gets to be for him, and you have, then start with yourself.
Yes.
So with women, it starts with the women that I work with, it starts with dismantling all of the ideas and perceptions that she's had up to that point where she decided to wake up, right? So, okay, so I actually don't want 50-50. I actually don't like it that, like I've been a feminist and been this kind of like radical, like man hater, right? I
Mm-hmm.
actually want polarity in my marriage.
Yeah.
Well, okay, let's start dismantling that. And when she starts to dismantle that and deprogram that from her system, then she starts, seeing her husband with a new perception as well. So for a lot of women who grew up in these times, I'm going to call them like modern times, right? We've received so much programming about men. Oh, he's like the Homer Simpson dad bod husband, right?
Mm-hmm.
And once a woman sees that she was programmed with that, like from the movies that she watched, to the shows that she was exposed to the media that she has received, to even the modeling that her own parents gave her, she starts to have power. She starts to see that, wait a minute, I was an unknown victim in those situations, but now that I see how I was hijacked, I actually have the strength to move forward from that. So that's the first level. She gets to see where she's been deceived, where the distortions happened, where the programming was installed. That's first. Then she gets to disrupt those and find healing. So healing is always necessary because we can't create a new reality or a new co-creation with God from broken like perceptions.
Yes.
Right. So that's where she gets to build like a new idea of who her man is and who she is as a woman. It's kind of like how you reorient your perception of God. Right. You've known God to be kind of like this tyrannical God. But then when you reorient that perception, when you heal that, oh, God is actually benevolent. God wants me to co-create with him. It's the same with reframing how you see your husband, at least in my work with women.
Yes.
So once she's in that reframe, she actually starts to develop a softness to her body, first internally and then externally. So a lot of the women that I work with, when they come from like this 50-50 dynamic, their bodies are like literally rigid because, kind of like she's had to take on like the whole 50-50, the whole 50-50 like equality narrative.
Yes.
She starts. So what I do at this stage is I actually become very literal in her activation of the feminine. So she starts dressing differently. She starts activating the feminine energy of like softness. She might, some women, they couldn't care less about looking beautiful for their husbands. Well, now she starts doing that. Right. And this is what we call kind of like the new habit formation, because like we use habits all the time in our work as coaches, but to actually like use beauty and aesthetics and the feminine activation as a tool, she starts to learn that. And that activates, because men, they follow the frequency of the woman. So if she's been hard all this time, and if she's been like rigid all this time, he's just going to respond to that with his own kind of like rigidness, right? But once she starts to reverse she starts to like create like this new polarity. I tell you, it's very magnetic to men to see a woman kind of like just blossom in that way. And literally her body becomes soft. She starts being more in her flow. So I also have an aspect where I take women back into their bodies and they do a lot of somatic release and like just moving with the flow and being very, very literal with that feminine energy. And then that's when, like the shifts in the relationship start to happen. So she starts to communicate differently, like the tone of her voice becomes less activated and more devotional, right? It creates that polarity. So those are like the 3 stages that I take women through when they're coming out of that rigidity of that like 50-50 programming, like I've got it all together. She starts to open for the masculine energy to penetrate her. Whereas before she was trying to compete with it. So she was not open. She was not receptive. So I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, you've got great answers. I really appreciate
it.
You've got beautiful insight and you've got a great way of articulating yourself as well. It's very clear and
it's what we do. It's what we do.
It's what you do, and it's very powerful. And I can tell it's a very authentic mission. You can tell when it's someone's true mission because it just comes straight from the heart. And I really get that sense with you, Martine, when you talk.
Oh, thank you, Nash.
Very powerful. I've got two questions. Do you have time?
Yeah, I do.
Amazing. Number 1, do you believe everyone on earth has a purpose?
I do believe that we get to find our purpose.
Okay.
Yeah. One of the things that I know our purpose is just to grow and expand. Like if we don't do that, then maybe we die in a way.
Yes.
So yeah, everyone has a purpose because everybody's meant to grow and expand and grow and expand. Yeah.
Yes. Beautiful. Great answer. And my next question, actually, I'm going to ask you one other sneaky question, which would be, how do people get in contact with you? Let's try that one. That's an important one.
Oh, sneaky
And find out
question.
more about you.
Okay. So they can go to my website, martinedeluna.com.
Yeah.
And I'm a lot on Instagram. So they can go to Instagram. I'm at Femininity and Freedom. I used to go by my name, but I'm experimenting with this for about a year or so. So let's see.
I like it. Two powerful words, what you're all about. So it makes sense.
Exactly, right?
Freedom.
It is what I'm about.
I love that. Last question. If you were to get access to the back end of all the biggest platforms in the world, you would they called you up and they said, Martine, we picked you to share a message out on Facebook and Instagram and everywhere else where people's attention is. So you got billions of people, their eyes are on you, and their eyes are on you for a minute. What would you share? What would be your message to these people that you'd want to impart with them?
That you are loved, that you are loved. And the reason why I want people to know that they are loved is because once they really receive that, then all the possibilities start to be open to them. That growth and that expansion suddenly becomes available to them. So it's that you are loved, and your mission might be to discover like the source of that love and where that love comes from. But you are loved because love starts with you.
Yes.
Love starts with loving yourself. And for some people are like, yeah, that's selfish. No, it's not. Because love is selfless. The very nature of it is. And so when you love yourself, you are actually operating in the way that the creator designed for you to be, because the creator made all of this out of love, right? And so when you can understand that you are loved and that it starts with you, and that the change that you decide to have in your life begins with you, wow, there is no limit to what you can create with God once you really receive that idea that I am loved. Not that idea, that reality and that truth that you are loved.
Yes.
So that's what I would say, because it will make them think. It will make them like, what? That's it?
I love
that's it. To 7 billion people? Yeah, that's it.
Yeah,
because it's going to make you think. It's going to make you angry a little bit, maybe. Or it's going to inspire you. Like, yes, that's true. It'll set off so many emotions.
Yeah,
but those are all right. But then that's the catalyst for it. So I feel that that's what I would say.
I love that message. So powerful.
Yeah.
So simple, and so much wisdom in it. Like I said, it's you bring so much wisdom to what you do. Thank you for the amazing work you're doing in the world, Martine, and thank you for being brave enough to bring your message to the world and really, really bring freedom to people, because there's a lot of people who don't know where they stand in the world right now, and they're caught up in all these different ideas, and that they really don't know their place in the world. And so what I find you're doing so well is supporting men and women find their place in the world, and not in a toxic way at all, in actually an expansive, brilliant way. So thank you for the work you do.
Thank you, Nash. And it was such an honor to be here with you.
My great pleasure. We'll chat soon.